Welcome back to the LaunchFamily Podcast, where we have honest conversations about the parts of parenting that don't always get named, but deeply shape who we're becoming. I'm your host, Jessica Shelley, mom of 7, former educator and co-founder of LaunchFamily. Today's conversation is one I think will resonate deeply with parents who are feeling in between who they were, who they've been, and needed to be, and then also who they're becoming next. My guest is Tamiko Nettles, founder of Let Go Be Great, speaker, mentor, and a guide for emerging to seasoned professionals navigating leadership, identity, transition, and purpose through life's changing seasons. Tamiko's work centers on a question many parents quietly ask themselves: who am I now beyond the roles that I've been carrying? Whether you're parenting young children, navigating multiple roles in different environments, or standing at the edge of almost empty nesting, this conversation is about identity, visibility, and becoming, not just as parents, but as people. Tamiko, I am so glad you're here.
I am so happy to be here too.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. I cannot wait to get into this. As I think I told you when we initially connected, I'm in I feel like an ever-changing season of motherhood with number 7 already having arrived by the time that this podcast airs. But right now I'm only 4 weeks away as we record. And so this constant ebb and flow of who I am as a professional, who I am as a mom. And I know that you have this incredibly inspiring story as well to share with us today. So I'm so excited to dive into that. On that note, I want to start by talking a little bit about how your leadership identity has maybe shifted and changed across seasons, like your background, and maybe how has parenthood also reshaped how you've seen yourself, and how can we maybe see how parenthood reshapes ourselves as well?
Ooh, that's a powerful, powerful question. Look, how much time do we have, Jessica? How
I
much
know,
time?
right? I'm like, start us
How
off
much
strong
time?
here.
Yes. Oh my God. So, first off, I just want to say before we even start, thank you so much for this opportunity to be in front of your audience to talk about something that is so near and dear to I know all of us. And actually, to talk about it is something that's an honor too, because sometimes parenting isn't talked about in the roles that we play, right? It's just like we just go to work or we just go and do what it is that is called, but never is it talking about something like this. So, thank you for this platform to have that thing that's not talked about be talked about. So going back to what you said about leadership identity, definitely in the roles across seasons, I've had many, and I feel like with all of those seasons, I try not to lose the why behind why I signed up for that. Even when I think about the role of a parent, the role that I've had as a parent was not planned at all. And sometimes that happens too, where we can plan out that we are going to have a child by X day or be in this situation when we do. That wasn't my story, right? I had no idea that this was going to happen, even though I was doing all the things, right, to make it happen. Um, had no idea at that time that that was what was going to occur. But I do think with seasons, it was the perfect time for it to occur because it was the perfect time for my firstborn to be born. It was the perfect time that I needed to have this other entity um, aid me in a new way to lead, in a new way to walk, in a new perspective that, the perspective I had was always doing things for others, being that person that was a light, in my community. And here it is, I got an opportunity to be a light in theirs, and be a light in a different way than what I could have ever expected. And so when I had my first, it was like, whoa, are you serious? I don't even have a name just yet. Like, well, I don't even know. Like, we were in the delivery room and I still had no name, you know? And, just being around, their dad's sister who came up with one right on the spot, which was so amazing for that. And for the second one, it was similar. Like I was just out doing me. And so many complications happened with my second one that was completely different from my first. And my second one actually was born 2 months early. So, um, that was something too. Is funny how that also is kind of like their character as well, to just pop up and be like, I'm here, so what you gonna do about it? So I do think that was another part of not expecting something that you thought, and so I know you just said, I'm 4 weeks away, but I'm always like, you just never know if those 4 weeks are going to be one, or if it's going to be two, or if it's going to be, like it happens tomorrow. And so I think the unpredictability um, of seasons around parenting is something. And one thing that just came to my mind is like, regardless of when it comes, we always should be ready. Like, we should be ready to expect whatever comes at the time that it comes, because the thing that we are growing, the thing that we are building, are seeds that want to come on this earth, right? And it's our job to be open to those seeds whenever they do come, and to welcome them with loving arms, right? So I think in my sense of parenting, it's been like that. And also, like, as I'm talking about this, the sense of where I've been in roles has been like that too. Like, I'm like, oh my God, look at that transparency that came out from this podcast. Um, but I feel like it's that same thing in terms of my journey from Georgia to here in Chicago, like where I've been a transplant basically all my adult life. And through this journey, it was a sense of like, I have no idea what I'm going to get when I sign up to be here. And there's no family here. Like, I came here with no family. I came here to do an alternative teaching certification program, thinking that after the 2 years of that program, I was going to go back to Georgia, right? But I have been here since, and this is almost 25 years. Um, and through that time, yes, every season has shifted how I experience my adult life, how I experience life in general, uh, and then also how I embrace those changes. That some of them were things I didn't expect. Like, there were 3 layoffs during this time, like, of roles that I was in, that I loved, that I excelled in, and I end up being let go, right? And there's something too about leadership in that journey, where you were so ingrained in what it is you do, and then you get the slap where it's like, oh, you got to do. But within all of those leadership, people can look at it as losses. They were so much leadership gains to move me into the next space, that had I had stayed in that space, I wouldn't have grown and been the person that I am now. And each of those roles that I came in after those roles got me to a whole nother level of the education field. Like, I moved from being a teacher to being a coach to principals and their schools, and getting them to collaborate more with each other. Principals all across Chicago, right? Like, I would have never known, being a teacher, here you come and you have this insight and this guidance to aid our leaders in how to collaborate more, how to make sure that their students are being exalted, that the teachers are being exalted, that the programs that they want to push in are being exalted, and then giving them an ability to collaborate with each other. I would have never known, had it been, even for the other job, that I could start coaching educators to aid them in being better educators to our students, and even better teammates to each other. I would have never known, had I stayed in that other position, me being over all of the educators in the Chicago Public Schools District, and working on appreciation and collaboration and policy to make sure our educators' voice was there, and that district staff also honored that, and that they could work together without feeling mistrust, but work together in collaboration. All of these things happen whether I wanted to or not, but they aided me as a leader with being open to what may come, and then being ready in the sense that all of these things were being nurtured in me all along. And it took those positions, either the let go moments or the new moments that happen after the let go moments, hence the name of my company, Let Go Dash Be Great, right? To realize that my dash is so important. And it got me to see life, even see parenting, even see leadership in a completely different way that I would have never known had I just stayed where I was, stayed in the comfortable space, right? Or stayed in a space that I thought was all I knew. But there was so much that came out of being pushed out or even being in the space to even for me to let go to start this company, right? It wasn't then a piece of me being pushed out of somewhere. It was me actually moving out of somewhere where I was comfortable with, but moved in faith to start this, right? So I think there's that openness, there's that willingness, there's that risk that we all take, which is also that open and willingness and risk of parenting that I think speaks volumes as well.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly powerful too, because I'm thinking, back on my journey and, specifically like those parenting moments, right? When my oldest two kiddos are close in age, like, 13 months apart. And I remember when we got that positive pregnancy test for the second one, and it was like, my gosh, my newborn is like 3 months old right now or 4 months old. Like, we're like, "Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do?" As a new young mom and then, pushed again, really of like resilience and like mental toughness. My second son had some medical challenges when he was an infant, and I also had a toddler at home, and it was like, "Okay, I'm in my second year of teaching. Now what do I do when I've got all of this stuff that's going on?" Um and I'm sure that parents that are listening in too can reflect on their journeys of like, "Oh yeah, this was something that surprised me or wasn't in the timing that I was expecting." But then when we see it, when we're in the moment,
Mm.
sometimes it's really scary. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's overwhelming. Sometimes there's tears, there's anger, hurt, whatever comes with it. But when we can kind of come out on the other side, it's like, "Oh wow, I'm so grateful that I've lived through that and I can help other people now, or at least know that I've made it through that. So whatever's coming next,
Yes.
and
You will make
that,
it through it too, yes.
you know, you know?
Yes.
So I think that's incredibly powerful and definitely uniting. Like, even though our experiences are so different, that is something that we can feel united with as parents of like, oh yeah, we've been through some stuff with our kids, right? So, another follow-up question that I have here is when you're going through this parenting journey, and I know I'm in like the early stages, you're on like the empty nester end, so I'm like more so,
Yes.
what is your wisdom? Tell me your ways. Oh, but we get into this mindset of I don't recognize myself anymore. And how has that been different at different stages for you?
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like with parenting, again, like there's that shift, right? It's not about you, it's about making sure you are doing the best for the people who now have come into your life, right? And it's a shift in um dang, do I get time for me? Like, in the time I just remember when they could not walk. I was like, "Oh my god, I have to be here at every single moment." Everything that I needed to do, because I remember with, my first, I was also getting my master's in education, right? Like my first master's in it. And it was like, how do I balance studying for this work and also now, making sure I spend that time to aid in development of this new I don't wanna say creature, but this new person, right? That is dependent on me for every single moment, and sometimes you do lose yourself and I need to be there for this person all the time because they can't do. Or maybe they can do, but I may be enabling them because I want to ensure that they don't have a need, right? And I know within those first couple of years, that's where I was. Although I had like a huge village of amazing people who would be like, Tamiko, I got you. Why don't you just go sit back for a second? Like all you need to do is just pump and then, just do the pumping and then just sit down. But it was a hard thing to do because you always felt like you had to be there, right? So for me, like the hard part was knowing, yes, that I could be doing something else, but feeling bad because I was doing something else when that baby at that time or that toddler at that time, I didn't want them to fail. I didn't want them to have to like fall or something, and I was not there to catch or save them, right? Um, but then, when they got older, and even now, like in these teenage years, I'm like, oh my God, they can make their own meal. Like they can call an Uber if they want to. They can do this, they can do that. Like, yes, they're like, mommy, go out, have fun. And I'm like, okay, I can leave you. This is great. But it took a while for me to be okay with that. And I think as a mom, realizing that sometimes you have to do that self-talk to tell yourself, like, you have put in the work with the individuals you have in front of you. They listen to you even when they think they are not listening to you. And they hear your voice even when you think they're not hearing your voice. They know the difference between right and wrong. They, have this insight of all of this stuff because of the village that's around them that's also speaking those same things that you speak, right? Um, Therefore, they're going to be well even when they're not in your sight. It took a while for me to get there. It also took, sometimes for them to remind me, like, hey, we got this, mom. Like, we got this. I already know. I know if I feel some kind of way, I'm gonna leave the space. I know which friends I'm gonna be hanging with and which ones I need to not to, right? Because you've put in the seeds and you've put in the work. And so I think that's something I had to recognize in myself when they started letting me know that. Then there was a calmness that, you know what? They do have this. Like, they do understand that. I have to trust that they're going to be okay because we've already put into them these particular things, right? And although they may want to go left, like they may go left, but they're going to come back right, right? And so I think that side of things was true. The other is like not losing you throughout these pieces. And there are times where, I could go hard in my work. I could go hard in taking care and making sure they were going to get to things on time or making sure they had all of that. But I had to remember there was a Tamiko before there were my children. I had to remember there were these hobbies and these experiences that I love doing. Like, I love salsa dancing. Like, I done competed. I done did all of those things. And I did it, when I was 9 months pregnant, made it to the semifinals. But like, I had to remember those are things that I still need to do and be a part of now. And I can't lose that, even though I'm caring for or have cared for, these seeds that were planted in me. And so I do think going back to those spaces as often as we can is another way in which not to lose ourselves and also not feel guilty about doing those things that we love while we do it.
My gosh, as you're describing all of that, I think the word grace came to mind. It's like specifically, I get asked all the time or I get told all the time, like, oh, by the time that you have number 7, like you're a pro, right? Like you've got it all figured out. And I'm like, no, are you kidding me? I've never been a mom to 7 kids before. Like I'm
Amen.
entering like this new season, like whether you go from 0 to 1 or 1 to 2 or however many children you have and however your dynamic changes and shifts, like you like, that's how we think of a season as well, and, like, you can I I've been trying to, like, retrain my brain with this, but basically, like, I can reinvent myself with each new child
Yes.
I have as, like, "Oh, this is a new season for me. Who am I gonna be as a mom?"
Yes.
Or, like, what are the things that are a priority? Am I gonna be 100% and be able to show up like that every single day? Absolutely not, and that's where the grace comes in.
Yes.
I've got 7 now, or, I've got 2, or I've got 3, like, oh my goodness, every number has its own unique challenges, and every
Mm.
stage of your child's life is also so different, right? Like, when they are so reliant on you, um infant and toddlerhood, and then they transition into like school age, and you're like, whoa, who's this big kid all of a sudden? you know I think like middle school, high school, like I can only anticipate because my oldest is in 4th grade this year, but I'm like, I can already like sense that little bit of like preteen, like, oh, I've got it figured out, my friends are cool, mom, you're lame, and I'm like, okay, well, whatever. All the other siblings think I'm so cool. you know no, not just this season will own. But I do think that word grace just like pour it out over your kids and yourself because every season you're kind of just riding the tides, and I think that your story just like and capture that as well. And I think it also leads me into my next question, which is, how our kids might perceive us and how that might be misaligned than how we might perceive ourselves, or what is the value in maybe kind of considering the way that they see us, right? Like I just said, my fourth grader thinks that I'm lame, but my 2-year-old thinks I hung the moon. So, what has been your experience with that?
Woo! Thank you for asking that question. Yeah, I feel like their opinions of us changes with time. It
Mm,
definitely changes with time. It's a different expectation of mommy um, when they are teenagers than when they are toddlers or elementary age. And I've seen it through all of it, where in the beginning, it's like, oh, come over here and meet my friends and let's, talk to them. Or I just love you. And you say that out loud, like you give the hugs, you do all the PDAs, the public displays of affection, you do all of that with your parents, and they think the world of you. Like they want you in their world as much as possible, and they don't feel weird saying it.
mhm.
And then we switch, and I'm so glad, Jessica, you just said, fourth grade. I remember that was the first grade I taught, fourth grade. And I remember the fourth graders I had. Oh my God, if any of them are listening, I'm going to say I still love you because y'all taught me a lot about being a teacher. But at fourth grade, it's like they start, what do you like? I don't know if people know what this means, but they start smelling themselves. They're like, yeah, I'm this, I'm that, and this is what I want. And then they're also very cognizant of their bodies and, um, what they put on it and, how they are perceived. Um, and at that point, this fourth through eighth grade time is like my mom, yeah, they may know some stuff, but they don't know it like I do because I'm learning a lot of what I know from my friends now. you know, um, and that becomes something as well, where you were the apple of the eye, but the friends become that, right? And then when they get into teenage years, it's more of smelling themselves, and nobody can tell them other than that. And they have to remind you of their age and all of the other stuff. And you're like, where did this mouth come from? Like what is going on here? Like I did not raise you that way. Like what is going on? And so I do think, going back to there are ways that they can see us. Um, and the way you see yourself is I am the parent. I have learned. I have wisdom. I was where you were when you were a child. The things that you think you pulling on me, I also pulled on my own, and I know what that is and I understand it. Yeah, I have been there before. You think I haven't, but even though it's been some years, the tricks have never changed. Like they still the same, right? So I feel like it's that, but I think one moment that really stood out to me, and I don't know if that's the moment that I told you about, if you want me to go into that now.
Sure,
Um,
yeah.
but was a moment where, and this is where one of my children were younger and they drew this picture. Um, and they drew this picture and it had like an image. And I think I brought it so you could see it. Is this where I talk? Yeah. So the picture on here says, Tamiko, you are wonderful in every way. Not even God can tell that. And then on the other picture, it says, Tamiko will change the world in every way. And then it says, and it's me saying something that says, and then I'm smiling here. It says, I am going to change the globe by being myself every day. What stood out to me when I saw this picture, and even when I brought it to my child's attention just recently, they were like, "Oh my God, look at how I drew. This is so, I can't believe I did that." And they're like over the dynamics of how the picture looks, right? Where I'm like, I'm over the dynamics of what this picture says because we, I know as parents, are authentic with our children. We are probably brutally authentic with them at times where they don't see the wisdom that they have and the character that they have because life and friends and experiences happen. But for my child to say, you're going to change the world by being yourself, speaks very highly of what it is they see within me. Authenticity, and I can say this to every single leader, like people know when you're real and when you fake. They know when you not showing up as your full self or you just saying something just to be saying it. But for the child of mine to see authenticity as how I will change the world, is different than what I ever thought that they could say. Like when I've seen every single part and piece of their character, but for them to say that and for me to now feel that, like I show up as my authentic self every single time and you get that from me, that's pretty amazing. And that's pretty amazing for them to say. And so yeah, I think authentic leaders, empathetic leaders, they're diamond in a dozen, you know? And if I can lead with authenticity, if I can lead with being myself and I affirm it and so do the people, like the children I have affirm it, that speaks volumes.
Absolutely. I think, as parents, when we look in the mirror, we might be our own worst critics sometimes.
Yes.
I'm like, oh man, I noticed all of the flaws from the day. And that
Yes.
one snapped because I had lunch late and there was chaos happening, but okay, yeah, no, I can show up authentically.
Hmm.
Like, and that is part of the human experience too, right? Like, and that's what we hope for our kids is to grow up to be authentic individuals that are empathetic and, members of society that are mindful of others. And those are the things that they learn from their environment at home first. Like that's their
Hmm.
first classroom. I mean, we connect on that ground as well. Like we're both educators. And so modeling behavior and modeling these things that we want our kids to know is so, so powerful. And I think that your story just now, like testament to that, right? So now I'm going to ask another follow up
Uh-oh.
question
Yes, bring it on, Jessica. Yes.
for the general, like for us that are listening in. How can parents learn to trust that reflection without feeling like the pressure to perform it? Like, what if I don't
Hmm.
actually feel like I'm being authentic? My child might have expressed or like, "Dad's the superhero, right? Like, he can do anything." But, like, what if on the inside you're like, "Oh my gosh, like, I'm so tired. I can't go fix the fence right now," or something. How do we kind of internally battle or what are your strategies for kind of, working through that?
I do think, like, sometimes our children and even the spaces that we work or the spaces we interact in may see us as being perfect without flaws.
Mm,
May see us going at 100%, and that's the image that they have. But I know one thing that I work on with myself and even with my children, and even with the leaders and the teams that I'm consulting, is sometimes we have to be real with where we are. Sometimes we have to say, you know what, I'm tired and I need somebody else to I need to delegate today because I don't
mm,
have it in me. And I feel like the more and more we're honest about how we're feeling, how we're showing up, it gives other people permission to do that same thing. Like I've been to, I've done some speaking engagements, and before I get up there doing the speaking engagements, I'm like, I am really nervous, y'all. Like, and I need you to give me some affirmation by like just shaking your head, like, Tamiko, you okay? You okay, right? But me being open enough to share that and not play like everything is hunky dory behind makes me more human and also does not put me at like I've arrived at this space. Like before we had this podcast, I'm like, oh my God, here it is. I gotta do blah blah blah. Like, my God, but I'm so calm now, right? Because I know before, like we were very honest about where we were, what we experienced before these cameras came on. And because we were honest, because we took time to be still, it helped with how we're showing up right now. And so the hope that I have for any parent or anyone is just be honest about where you are. And because you're honest about it and because you share it and you don't hold it in, the person on the other side is going to be able to receive it. They're going to either be able to give you some support that you probably didn't even think about before you even said it. I remember I've been in conversations with people where we have had an intent to a Zoom call, right? And then there's something the person says where it's like a trigger for me to stop moving the conversation on the flow and go into what they just said. Because it was a point that was there that had they not said it, I wouldn't even taken another direction. I would like I'm like, "Oh my God, you need X? I know somebody that could do X. I know somebody that could do Y. Like, thank you for opening it up." Or you just feel really tired. Then, before we continue this meeting, let's just take a pause and just stop talking and just be still. But it takes really showing up and not being afraid to show up. That's when you get those results. Like when you become very honest about where you are and what you're experiencing, the only person who's not going to benefit is you not sharing it. But the
Mm,
minute you do, somebody else is like, "Oh my God, let me put my shoulders down. I feel more comfortable now." And that's where I want my children to be. That's where I want, you to be. That's where I want our parents to be. That's where I want our leaders in these organizations, the people who we serve, like our youth. I want them to be that way, to just be honest. Because it takes a lot to be fake. Like, it takes a lot to think that you know everything and you probably don't, but it takes so less of your time to just be like, this is where I'm falling short. How can you
mhm.
help me? How can you aid me? Is there anybody that can support me? Is there anything I can do in order to help you? Like all of those things don't take as much time. It's like getting over the fear of what somebody may say. But like once you got it out there, only way you can go is up.
Yeah. What a weight relief and
Exactly.
right of oh yeah, no, we're all just people anyway. Um, and I think this kind of leads into the next part of our discussion, which is like a parenting across contexts, right? Like when you're saying be honest with where you are, it's like, okay, you've just worked a whole day, your child has baseball practice, soccer practice, basketball practice, play practice, whatever is happening after school extracurricular. They're hungry, they haven't eaten, you show up at practice, right? Then what happens? Like maybe you're already tired, maybe you're hungry too, but you got drive through or packed a snack for them or whatever it could be, right? Like understanding that there's so much that goes on in the day and how we show up really is just like that, right? Like it is what it is. And I want to pull a story in real quick. Um so we have, as I mentioned, we have a very large family. And so when we go to sporting events, it would be exorbitant cost to buy
Hmm.
everybody hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken nuggets, whatever, nachos. And so we usually pack a whole cooler. And I remember we got to practice one night and there was a family that it was just their first season of baseball. Mom's trying to figure out logistics of how she's going to get her son to practice because she works after practice is supposed to start this random day. Well, little sister also came to practice and little sister was hungry and was with grandma and grandma's like, "Oh, I don't know, we're at practice, but I don't know what to do or where to go or anything." And we were just like, "Oh, we have extra food, you know? Like, here's some extra food. We always pack more." And it's those are the great moments too of "Oh, I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to be prepared because that's where I was supposed to serve that night." It's
Hmm.
"Hey, no pressure. We've got you, we've got your family. They're all good. She's not gonna go hungry." And so again, being able to be vulnerable in that moment and that for that mom to be like, "Hey, I need help right now because I'm worried about my son and my daughter who's there with grandma."
Hmm.
And it's like, "Oh no, we've got your back." But if we come and we're fake with the facade of "Oh no, I've got it together, we're gonna make it work," and you're push, 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 how could that situation have been very different?
Hmm.
Just an encouragement to those that are listening in, you again, this season, you never know. You never know what's coming and when. So
So true. And I wanna piggyback off of what you just said because I know in that moment Not only was her child, the other person who you just talked about, watching, but probably your children and your husband were also watching to see, like, here is now a moment where our family is meeting this need,
Mm,
and where, we're also giving of ourselves, but now we're giving of others. And like that is probably something that your children are now thinking about when they may be in a situation. Like think about the lunchroom, right? Where somebody don't have enough or somebody
yes.
and they may feel because of what you just shared or what you just showed that they can also be that to someone else too. So like they're always watching us, and it was probably a benefit for them to see that you did as well. Mhm.
Yeah. No, I love that you bring that up because then we did, like, intentionally start bringing, like, a whole extra box of granola bars. And we're like, "We gotta bring extra in case anyone needs this." Sure, that's fine. You guys give it out as you see fit. Like, that's not
Mhm.
for me to manage.
Mhm.
Um, but I love that. Again, coming back to, like, some of that early conversation about modeling, and they do pick up on what they see, and I appreciate you connecting all of that too in the moment.
They pick it
Um,
up. Mhm.
yeah, so I guess, like, you know, parents are like shape shifting kind of to fit the environment that they're parenting in. They're riding the seasons of the day. What are some ways that parents can maybe stay grounded in who they are when expectations might keep changing?
Hmm.
And then with that.
Yeah, I like that question. Um, I think I know sometimes time is of the essence. Like I feel like every day there's really no time in the day. You look back and you're like, oh my God, and even if, there are parents who work from home, you're trying to do everything before you get in front of the people that depend on you, right? And you're trying to get all of those things done. Or even if you work outside of the home, right? It's still like, I gotta be here for the job, at this time. And then I gotta do dinner at this time. And then I gotta, spend time going over homework at this time. And it feels like the time for you or even time interacting with you feels like few and far between. Um, and I think the most important thing that I would say for anyone is, and what I just heard in my spirit was just take 1 minute.
Mm,
Sometimes we think that we have to take 30, or a whole hour or a whole day. But if we can just take a moment, and I'm saying as short as a minute, and if that means just breathing on today for that 1 minute, breathe on that 1 minute and say, you know what, I got a little bit closer to spending time with me. The other thing I know that I'm intentional about is I do have a morning routine. And I feel really bad when I take things out, like I go out of how that morning routine is. I feel off, you know? Um,
yeah.
like I know that I have to do all of these things before a particular time. Like I have to be rooted and grounded. Like I gotta be able to like get my mind in the space of I need to be ready and be a vessel for whatever way, I need to be that vessel for. I gotta do that first, right? Um, and then also like I love journaling. I even created a journal, right? Like so that we could start writing down these moments where there have been big and small wins. And because when there are times where it's not, I need to go back to that and remember how I experienced it and what I went through, right? Um, or just reminding yourself that you will get through this next thing, that you are capable of doing as much as possible to remind you who you are and what you have already achieved and the accomplishments you have had, whether it's for yourself or for the children that you have in front of you or for other children, if your children have already moved out that nest. And I would think like if there is intentional time, just as we have an intentional time to be at our work on this time to this time, making an intentional time for ourselves, even if it's 1 minute and penciling it in, is the best intention that we can do for all these other ways people and things want us to show up in our spaces. Because I'm learning that people will continue to do what it is you let them. you know? And the more and more we yield to what other people want from us, um, the more and more we become less of who we want us to become. So I think it's very important, even if we can carve out a minute, and if a minute is not enough, like carve out 30 seconds. It was something I'm part of this other coaching grant, and they are saying that like 10 seconds is 3 breaths. And when you think about that, I'm like, whoa, that's just 10 seconds. We can breathe for we could do 3 breaths. Like that could change everything, right? Because it gives us to pause. But if we can get back to what it was that we did before our kids came into the equation, get back to what it was that we did before we, had a significant other, like don't lose that part of yourself, because you also don't want your children to lose that part of themselves either, right? So the more and more they see us model taking that time out, the more and more they see us, again, being honest when we need it, you know, um, the more and more they're gonna also start doing those same things, or start pointing out when you, mommy, are not doing it, or start pointing out to somebody else, like when they see them running ragged or whatever else, like, okay, you probably need to take a breath right now. Go and do that. Like they'll start doing those things as a result. So if we can do that for ourselves, intentionally, or we can schedule out some time where we just do that and not feel bad about it, then I think that will make a whole world of difference.
I love that practical tip too. And I'm like doing the math in my head. I'm like, 1 minute. I could probably 1 minute a day for a month. That's 30 minutes. That's half an
See?
hour. Like, okay. I think
Yes.
and
Yeah,
that's like point, right? Like, okay, we can overcome this.
yes,
'Cause I'm also worth it as the mom, right? You're also worth it as the mom and like listen,
yes.
you're worth a minute of your day. Okay, come
And then
on.
you can start building on, like, okay, I did a minute for 30 days. Like, let me see what 2 minutes will look like, And you start building up your stamina.
Oh
Girl,
my
yes, it
God.
becomes look at you.
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of do math. I was in elementary school.
Yes.
But no, I love that practical tip. I before we kind of wrap up today, any other like lasting thoughts or advice or tips or inspiration that you want to share with listeners from our episode today?
Yeah, I would say like two things. To one, like, don't forget you've been given this gift. You've been given the gift of being a mother, being a father, being a parent or a guardian, being a caretaker. That's not an easy gift for everybody to hold. But for some reason, that's the gift that you have. And to use this acknowledgement of that gift as a way to share with yourself that you have so much to give to the seed that you produce or that you're raising. I would say like that's the first thing. And then the second is, and it may be a third, but the second is start creating boundaries around how you want to utilize the gift that you have. you know? Um, and if you find somebody impeaching on those things, be okay with telling them that. Um, because the more and more you do for others, you also have to realize that you have to do that same thing for yourself. And if you find that like you're spending too much time in one area that's draining you, set a boundary up around like, this is not going to be my MO for the rest of the month. Like, it's just not, or this is not going to be how I'm going to continue to live this portion of my life out. Put a boundary out there. Like, I am, I don't know why I was thinking this, but like the boundary could be, um, I going back to the 1 minute, right? Like I I know son, daughter, husband, significant other, y'all want this from me right now. But honestly, mommy needs about 2 minutes to go into this bathroom, close the door where I don't want to hear anyone knock on it. After that 2 minutes is done, I'm going to be all yours. But I just need that moment right now. And even before the moment, maybe that's a call together family meeting where we talk about, hey, y'all, sometimes I know I get on y'all nerves. Sometimes I know you get on mine. you know, what is something we can put in place before we get to that nerve part that we can do as a family? And whenever somebody says they need that time, without question, we're not going to ask no questions. We're just going to do it. So if mommy says I need 2 minutes because my day has been so hectic, can we agree to give mommy 2 minutes before it
Mm.
even happens, right? Can we agree to that? That's a boundary we're setting before it gets to that moment and we may forget. Right. So like set those boundaries and be okay with it, but also don't set them without letting other people know what those boundaries are. Because we be like, I need 2 minutes. And they're like, where'd it come from? But like if you don't let them know, that's why communication is so important. If you don't let them know, then they're not gonna know that that's something that has been a pet peeve of yours that you really want them to know at first, right? Um, and then the third, yeah, I'm gonna say my company, let go. Let go and be great. I'm gonna put the and in the dash. Let go and be great. Like there are gonna be some things that we have to release. There are gonna be some things that are not serving us any longer. There are gonna be some things that we just have to say, you know what, I give up this portion of my parenting right now because somebody else gotta take it. I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna release it because I know in me doing that, I'm gonna get to great. And the people around me are going to benefit from that release because I'm not going to hold on to it anymore because somebody else can pick it up that can handle it. That's
And
it.
I don't know how to follow up with any of that except for you. Thank you so much for this conversation and for giving us language to something that so many parents feel, but we don't really say it out loud often. It's kind of like the silent thing that's happening behind the scenes, and we're like, I don't know if everybody else is feeling the same thing as me or not. So, thank you so much for taking the time to have the conversation. To our listeners, if you would like to work with Tamiko, find all of her resources in the show notes. And if this episode resonated with you, I hope you'll take a moment to reflect, not on
Yes.
what you've lost in parenting, but on what may be emerging. Take the minute for yourself, please. And you're not disappearing as your child grows. You're actually transforming. It's a new season, right?
Yes.
And so sometimes the people who see that most clearly can be our kids. They like to give those reminders too sometimes. So I love that you recommended that we also communicate that up front. Like I could see that our kids could say, like, hey, mommy, maybe you need a minute, right? Like, wow, what an incredibly powerful tool that you could have in your household. So to our listeners, until next time, remember that letting go doesn't mean losing yourself. It often means finally meeting who you're becoming or destined to be.